Welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning with myself, Peter Giblett, and with him, Dave Wheeler. So Dave, morning, how are you doing?
Fine. I'm just a little miffed. I'm really miffed by being held hostage in my condo by skunks.
Oh,
I'm on the ground level of my condo. So when I go to sit out in my patio, well, my version of a balcony, which is ground level, basically.
yeah.
I can't go out there at night. I like to go out there after dark and have a beer and maybe read stuff off my phone. Well, Jesus, there's skunks. I thought there was one. There's two. And last night I went to last couple of nights I've had to dodge and weave these skunks. And last night I went out there, I had my can of beer, and I sat down and I looked on the lawn, but then around the corner, because I'm on a corner unit, I see this shadow because of the lights of the building. Oh no! And I could actually see a tail. And he comes right around the corner. It was only like a couple yards from me, and luckily my door was still open, my patio, and I dashed in there and closed the door. God, I just
smelly animals, aren't they?
Oh God, they're like, I can't just sit there and relax. I got to keep looking, and they creep up so quick.
Yeah,
and I don't know. They're just nuisances. Well, I found one thing you can do is have some music or something coming from your phone that kind of alerts them a bit. But and sometimes I bang my knock on my patio door to shoo them away. But there was one that's a little skittish, will take off, but the other one don't care, and it just sits there and just kind of lifts its eyes and lifts its tail.
Somewhere in your vicinity, probably within 50 meters, you've got the skunks have found themselves a nest, haven't they?
Oh yes, indeed. There's always been a nest around here. Like the one that used to be in the backyard right across from my patio, that one was blocked off. The guy finally blocked off. It was there for years, but they just started somewhere else. Along Throwstone Road here, many of the on the south side of the road, there's deep lots that so many of them can hang in there. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm in a hostage. Like I got to look out my window all the time and make sure those little bastards aren't there.
Yeah, we get them every once in a while. What'll happen is you wake up about 3 o'clock in the morning to this dreadful smell.
Well, that's because something, probably a dog or something, has chased it. I haven't had a bad smell around here for a long time, but that's only gonna happen if a dog gets out of its house, sees one of those, and chases it. Then we're gonna get a
some of them love. We seem to have one around here that loves to spray, come what may.
No, they don't do that because that discharging that spray takes a lot of energy to repack it up, so they won't do it. Even when I've come pretty close to a skunk or seen somebody or a skunk they'll stop, they'll look at you, and they'll lift up their tail. They won't spray until the last minute because that means because they have to recharge their scent glands, which takes energy.
They're still a very smelly creature anyway, just walking by.
No, not at all. Not unless they've sprayed.
Well, they seem to be just in the middle of the night. We get sprays, and I don't have dogs around. We just get, I don't know what it is. They
might have been a coyote, might have been a stray cat or something. Anything something has scared the skunk, and believe me, they will not spray unless they feel threatened.
The worst of it is that they spray outside, of course. But the inside, you wake up in the morning and it stinks, right? And yet if you were to walk straight down the stairs and go straight outside, there's not a smell of it anywhere around.
Yeah, sometimes. Well, once the odor gets in there, and
I
you don't
know.
have the same volume of air exchange as the outside does. It's just the way it is. And
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you have, the closer they are, the worse it is. And they have, I don't know. I've had two dogs that were sprayed, and our house stunk forever.
yeah.
And like it was
Well,
just like impossible to
I
get the
think it's
smell out.
in
I washed the dogs countless times a day, and it didn't really matter.
I think it come. I think they have a home in the yard, in the industrial yard next to us, right? And every once in a while, the dog from there finds them.
Oh yeah.
You
Well,
know.
that's what it is. They won't spray unless they're threatened, because that's just a waste of their energy.
All right.
And
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So it's the end of summer vacation, essentially this weekend. And just to let everybody know, there's a tree giveaway in Lincoln, so you can get, the town is receiving 17,000 from Niagara Community Foundation and 10,000 from Greenbelt Foundation, through the Living Cities Canada Fund, and they're going to be giving away trees.
yeah. But I think they're meant for Lincoln, aren't they? Tree
Yeah,
planting giveaway in Lincoln this
yeah,
fall, as the
yeah.
municipality. I think you have to be
You have to be a
a
member.
resident of Lincoln.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the same. We've had tree giveaways in Niagara before, Niagara Falls before, and
Yes.
other towns.
In
Yeah,
this,
you have
in
to be
this
a
case,
resident.
it's okay.
You have to be a resident of Lincoln. But again, the idea is to try and encourage tree growth.
Yes, I like their idea here. They're trying to initiate groups to make planting mini forests in urban areas. So take a plot of land and maximize the amount of trees that you could put in there. And they would be indigenous plants and trees to the area. It wouldn't be just trees, it would be shrubs too. But to get it all started, they want to start these little mini forests and improve the canopy of the town, which means if you were to fly over top of the town and look down, you wouldn't be able to see the ground. And that's what they're trying to do, to recreate, if anything, maybe they're trying to create Carolinian pockets of Carolinian forests, which are unique to the Niagara region.
Yeah.
But they're trying to get it a diversity of trees and native species of trees and shrubs in smaller areas to encourage fast tree growth. That's that's a commendable idea. We need trees. Everybody feels better if they have trees and shrubs around, and you have a pile of trees in small mini forest. I think that's very encouraging. But beware, those mini forests will attract coyotes, they'll attract foxes and skunks.
Okay, they're giving away 500 trees, one per household, at the Jordan Lions Arena on October 4th from 8:30 a.m. till noon.
There you have it.
There you go.
And I think they're also going to distribute rain barrels as well. You could probably buy a rain barrel for cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of those sort of things, yes, they distribute a lot of stuff like that as well. Yeah. Good morning.
Hello there, Metaphysical Mike, our listener, Mike Cushman, who was on point with the journal Pointer just a little while ago, and he still is hounding the ministry to get something done about the Welland River there.
Yep. Okay, so the region's search for affordable housing solution intensifies, according to a new report. I find this kind of interesting because I think nobody's really come up with with some definition of affordable. Affordability needs to be something we need to figure out first.
They have an idea. They have an idea of what affordability is, and if you go on the Niagara Region website, you'll find it. And they have a range of middle class incomes, anywhere from 54 to 63 per person. 43 or 50, 54 or 58 or something to 63 or $64,000. That would be the mean income of the average wage earner in Niagara Falls. The real rub here, however, is that means that the family income would be around $109,000 per year, and the affordable house that they could buy would be $341,000. However, the average residence in Niagara Falls is double that, $700,000. How is a person who earns the average income that's a family $109,000 going to afford a $700,000 home?
Yeah,
pretty much they what the region says is sort of given up on that kind of thing, and it's pretty much said that you're not going to get a home. The strategy primary purpose now is to build high density housing, and rents their private dwelling. Like here it says the strategy's primary purpose is to show how the Niagara region can help create conditions that allow the housing sector to build a broader range of housing types and tenures, which refers to whether the household owns or rents their private dwelling. That's part of it. Despite the recent positive trends towards greater mix of dwelling types, Niagara still needs to increase its supply of apartments to meet the demand. 65% of Niagara households are single and two-person households, and Niagara's core housing needs include over 21,000 households who require bachelor or one-bedroom apartments. Yeah, well, what it also says, if you look between the lines there, it is the region has decided basically that most of us are going to be apartment dwellers or renters.
Yeah.
The region has determined that for the average wage earner, houses are going to be beyond their reach. They are not going to be able to. They're going to be able to rent a house, rent an apartment, or something like that. They are not going to be able to own a home. They might be able to own a small condo or something like that, but they will not be able to own a home. And they've kind of like come to that conclusion, which they don't really say that here, but by their plans that I can see, they have pretty much dismissed the idea that the average wage owner is going to be able to afford.
One of the things that's strange about this is, for example, if you're renting a home, and let's say that you're spending $2,000 a month on renting that said home, but yet if you were to buy the same home, and you payments on the mortgage for the same home would be like $1,500. So part of the question also then becomes, well, if the mortgage was going to be less than the rent, why couldn't you lend to that particular individual? And it's all about banking risk.
Well, I don't know. You can rent. One of my sons rents a house.
Yeah.
But him and his partner, together they make a pretty good living, but they can't afford a house, and that's the whole thing. They make better than average income, and yet of this 109,000, and yet they can't afford a house. They can't even begin to get there.
Yeah, I know. But what I was saying is, if they were to afford, if they were to have a mortgage on the house that they live in, they'd probably pay less on their mortgage than they would on the rent. And that's what
well, possibly, and it depends on interest rates and all that other stuff.
Oh, I know.
When the interest rates went up, a lot of people got in a lot of trouble. Who bought, who expected the interest rates to stay low. So that's always a factor in this. Whereas I don't know, and that of course reflects rents, but their rents don't suddenly go up like interest rates can.
No, exactly, and that's all part and parcel of the point. But you get the point that I'm making here is that we've got a number of problems in this area about how you buy or rent anything, and I'm not so sure that this is necessarily going to get to the bottom of it.
Well, basically, what they're saying is they kind of wash their hands of the ability of the average wage earner of $109,000 or family wage of $109,000 being anywhere near possible to buy a house, because if somebody, a family work taking in $109,000 could only realistically afford a house of $341,000, and when houses are going for double that price, it puts them out of reach. So what the region has done is trying to concentrate on higher density dwellings closer to bus and or transport systems, which is kind of a joke because our transport systems really aren't up to that right now, but they are being utilized. So what they plan to do is put up what Cisco wants to do anyway. If he's from St. Catharines, the mayor of St. Catharines is wondering why they don't talk about high density residencies around the transportation hubs. But it also says,
I'd agree with him. It's a worthwhile statement.
I suppose so. But what that also means is, well, we're going to have to pack you in tight in a small area. As Canadians, most of the time we don't like tight and boxed into an area. We like to have a piece of land, or at least
but it's the modern way. It's the modern way. We have here, we're the second largest country by area in the world, but 90% of our population is crammed into that zone of 100 miles, north of the American border.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the bulk of the population is right here in southern Ontario and southern Quebec. But the factor here, as I said, for those families who, and we have to build them where transportation systems are, buses, etc., where those people who choose not to have vehicles. No, the underlying, if you read between the lines there, it tells you that the average wage earner is going to have to make decisions. Can I afford a car, basically, is one of them.
Well,
that's what it says. Choose not to have a vehicle really means can't afford to have a vehicle, if you ask me.
Well, the other question about that, though, is that in the Niagara region, you don't have alternative choices, right? You don't have bus options, right? It's a question of, well, okay, I've got I've got two choices when it comes to getting to work. Either I live near work. Well, I got several choices, right? Either I live near the work where I can walk there, or I go by bus there, or the more likely one is I've got to drive there.
Well, exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You cannot live in this country without a car. And it says in the article, for like whoever the spokesperson was, said, oh, if people choose not to have a vehicle. What I'm saying is they might have to choose not to have a vehicle because they can't afford it, not choose it because it's, oh, do I want a car or not a car? Everybody wants a car. Like 99% of us want a car. And Mike Cushman, our listener, Metaphysical Mike, says Niagara region sold a house they were operating, and it is an Airbnb now. I wrote them and told them what a great job they were doing, taking away an affordable home geared to income for an Airbnb. Well done, Mike. Well, and that would be Mike also says high density housing in the industrial section.
Yeah, no.
Well, that might not be good unless they clean up some of the messes in there. But you could take, let's say, the old GM buildings in Ontario Avenue in St. Catharines. Well, they were going to build apartments there, but it was a mess.
Well, there's new apartments. There's new apartments coming in. By the way, there's a meeting on September the 10th for new apartments built where there's currently industrial units on 4310 Queen Street. No, sorry, on 4th Avenue, opposite the YMCA build. And so there's new apartments going, or sorry, new townhouses going in there with, completely covered. It's got to have under it cyanamide slime.
Yeah, I don't know. You got to clean it up, and as we've seen, Lori, Parliament, our listener says, where are they going to get the down payment?
Yeah,
good question. If a young family is trying to get a place to stay, they may be able to squeak out the interest payments or the mortgage payments. But the other factor is they have to come up with a sizable down payment. That's brutal. You can't do both. You could go to the bank and says, well, I can make the monthly payments. And the bank says, well, we want 10% down on it or 5% down on it. And that's a huge hunk of money. How can you come up with that huge hunk of money? People have solved that by getting what's called a double mortgage. But those things are now traceable, where you borrow money from one institution to make the down payment and then start your mortgage with the other and try to pay off both at the same time. That used to happen back in the 50s and 60s when when families would start try to get off. I know my parents did that with their first house. They couldn't afford the mortgage, but they could afford the mortgage payments. So what they did is they went to somebody else and got what's called a second mortgage, basically. So they would borrow the money for the down payment and then pay both those off, which put them really backed them into a corner. But that was at a time when the economy was growing, so they were able to handle it.
Yeah,
that's the situation we find ourselves in now. You can't, if you can afford the mortgage payments, you can't afford the down payment. It really, and so the Niagara solution or the solution is build a lot of units in a densely packed place and close to transportation hubs if they can. And we don't really have the greatest transportation here.
Again, if you live in, you say for example, and I'll use this one because it's a well-known place. So you've got an apartment building. Let's say it's and there's one going up now which complies with this rules. It's within 100 meters of the St. Catharines bus terminal. Are you going to use that? So you're going to be working downtown, or walking to the bus to go and get your transit to work? Is that really feasible?
I don't know. I don't know. Like if you're going to be working downtown, I would imagine a minority of the people living in the building will be working downtown because there's only so many employment opportunities there.
Yeah.
But so most of them would be jumping on a bus trying to get to where they do work, and that's another factor. That if you don't have this whole plan, meaning they're trying to get high density employment where people can't really afford a car. And so they have to rely on the buses. So that really limits your job opportunities, doesn't it? Because you have to find a job where the bus is going or close enough to the bus is going. And we really don't have extensive transportation here. I just came from Portugal back on August 7th. I'm telling you, the transportation sector in all their cities is spot on. But even the little towns have some kind of buses and things, but we don't have them here. We can't match that. And then until we really open up our infrastructure and make public transportation a thing, then this whole thing's not going to work, because everything's happened too fast. Where the standard of living is dropped for the middle class person, so they can afford less and less. They can't afford a house. They have trouble affording a car. They need a car to get to work, but then they're told, okay, well, use the bus, but we don't have enough buses. At least in Europe, it was a gradual thing. They built the infrastructure, started before people had cars.
Yeah. Well, again, with this came the same challenge. As people know, I work in St. Catharines. If I can get to St. Catharines where I work, including the walk from the from the parking garage to my office in about 25 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes. Home to front. Home and leaving the door to walking in the door at work. Right. If I take the bus, well, I'll put aside the 20-minute walk to the bus to get the bus first thing in the morning downtown. There isn't a bus from the bus terminal to St. Catharines. I have to go somewhere else in Niagara Falls to go get the bus. Then there isn't a bus that goes direct from there to the bus terminal in St. Catharines. It wanders all over the place. So it would take me an hour, at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half to get to St. Catharines bus terminal, where I'm then a 15-minute, 10-minute walk away from the office.
There you go.
Yeah. I would have had to been on the bus already.
Yeah.
That's how crazy this is. And I would actually go by bus if the bus gets me, if the bus guaranteed to get me there in, say, 45 to 50 minutes, I'd go by bus.
Well, there you have it. But you know what? These are the challenges here, and the thing that I suppose I should have accepted or anticipated is the acceptance of the region and everyone around here that you're going to have a underclass of people, which used to be the middle class, the average home earner. Yeah. It's now an underclass person. They have to take a step down in the standard of living. Their expectations of having a house are nearly gone. Their expectations of being able to afford a car and a house and rent are already reduced. So in real terms, they have accepted the fact that the standard of living has gone down, and they now have to find means of servicing or providing for that underclass. I mean, that's tragic to me that they have accepted the fact that that is the trend, and we're not going to be able to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fair comment. All right. Any one more comment. Putting the cart before the horse is the government's way. Let's build 1 million homes when we don't have wastewater treatment plants yet or the roads. Yep.
Yeah, that's like pretty much. Let's bring millions of people into the country where we don't have houses or healthcare to provide for them.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. All right. This next one's quite a disturbing story. A Canadian Border Services Agency have been embarrassed because a man allegedly part of a ISIS terror attack later became a Canadian citizen.
We are very lucky here. Now, I just mentioned the immigration thing. Now CSIS and the RCMP are being grilled basically. Why they were able to find a terrorist that was days away from a terrorist and his son were days away of murdering a bunch of people right here in Canada. They're very lucky to get them. My point here, and these two went through an extensive screening process, and yet they were missed. They were overlooked. Yeah. I will contend that if you want to bring 500,000 people into the country and 1 million, and you have 1 million temporary workers in the country, right now we have 1.3 million temporary workers in the country, you're going to miss them. At that rate, you do not have the resources to check everyone thoroughly enough, and you're going to have a few sneak in, and we don't know how many have already snuck in. and we've had a couple of narrow escapes. Remember, there was a terrorist that was going to blow up the bridge there in St. Catharines, the rail bridge.
Yeah.
There was the other one that was going to behead Harper, and they were lucky to get on top of those just before the act was happening.
Well, most of our security services are pretty good at getting on top of terrorist attacks before they happen. We really honestly don't know how many of such attacks are thwarted until we hear reports like so-and-so was jailed for, plotting a terrorist plot.
Yeah, now there's a parliamentarian. She's moving up the ranks of the Conservative Party. I know that because she's quite often sitting beside Pierre Poilievre, and she, Lanceman, her name is Lanceman, and she was grilling Aaron McCrory, who is the security minister, basically, and Melissa Lanceman. I've heard her speak a few times. I think she's going to be a rising star in the Conservative Party. She's level-headed. She's got really good questions. She's a no-nonsense parliamentarian, it seems to me. She's young yet, but I see her star rising in the Conservative. So she's saying, where was the mistake? And McCrory says, well, I'm not even sure there was a mistake. Well, obviously there was a mistake because they let in a murderous ISIS guy into the country. And there was a video available for CSIS and the RCP to have, because this guy in a video, this guy was monstrously brutal to a victim, and it was put on the dark web. Now, why doesn't the RCMP or CSIS have, and that was their excuse. Well, we didn't know about it because it was on the dark web. Well, how come you're not monitoring the dark web? Doesn't that what you're supposed to do?
We would expect
I was incensed when I heard that. Oh, well, you know what? It was on the dark web. We didn't know about it.
I would expect CISA and, Canadian Border Services Agency to actually be looking at the dark web for terrorist plots and that sort of thing, especially when names of people are given and names and identities of people are given. They should be on a watch out for this person list, right?
This guy was identified, and he was put on a video in 2015 where he's brutally torturing somebody.
Yeah.
2015, and they let him in 2018.
Yes. Yeah.
And on all that time from 2015 to now, now they found that video, and it was only days before he committed a terrorist attack. In fact, minutes away from Lanceman's own riding, that he would have done some terrible things. And the video of him was in 2015 on the dark web, and you can't tell me that CSIS or RCA or the RCP couldn't find that for 9 years.
Well, I would go one step further than that. If he committed this act in 2015, he was already making an application to come to Canada, likely. And we don't know that, it doesn't say how he came to Canada.
Presumably by refugee status.
Well, yeah, if he came to Canada through refugee status, then that's different. But if he was making a normal application, he would have already been on the radar of CSIS and Canadian Border and Services Agency, surely.
Well, they got 143 staff that review 200,000 a year. Don't you think they're a little bit overburdened?
They are, yeah.
They initially refused 7,500 immediately, and once they've landed, they 37,000 others. Problems are then identified, and then unfortunately after that they keep searching and they find even more, and those people are then have to go to the immigration board to see if they're going to stay. So they're overburdened. And there are 6 levels of checks that they do, and on 6 levels of checks, they couldn't find this guy. Unbelievable. He was a CSIS operator with a video on the dark web,
ISIS operator.
2015. 3 years later, they let him into the country. 6 years later, he's about to kill a bunch of people right here in Canada. How many of these guys have snuck through? You've got 500,000 people coming through. You've got a refugee program, a temporary work program, and a student program that brings hundreds of thousands of people into the country. How are you going to review all those people?
You can't.
So they're overwhelmed, and there are layers. It's very clear that there are 6 layers of checks on those people that are coming in aren't working, and that's what Melissa Lansman is saying. Where was the mistake? And the answer to that was, we don't even know if we made a mistake. We made the best decision we could with the information we have. And I'm asking, there was a video on the dark web in 2015. 3 years later, you let this guy in. How come you didn't look on the dark web?
Yeah, and Aaron McCrory, Vice President of Intelligence and Enforcement at CBSA, is saying, can we do a better job of collectively gathering more information? I don't know, right? I don't know.
He doesn't even give the pat answer. Well, obviously we could improve things. Everybody can improve things. He just says, I don't know.
Yeah, the categorical answer to that one is always absolutely yes. We can do a better job, right? And hey, we expect people like the CBSA and our intelligence services to go search the dark web.
ISIS and Al Qaeda and all of them use the dark web. So, hey, we couldn't find them. They're on the dark web. Well, it's not on my computer. Idiots. What an answer is that? Oh, well, we didn't know about the video because it was on the dark web. What kind of a security system are you? Right?
Yeah. Okay. The other one in relation to this is that Pierre Poilievre is saying he would rein in population growth if elected.
Well, this is very obvious. I think this is obvious to everybody that the Liberal government has had an ideal of bringing in hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, and the immigration and student stuff like that, without preparing the groundwork first. They have the ideal. This is what we're going to do, so we'll just do it. Nobody thought, can Canada absorb that many people that fast? Now Poilievre is saying the obvious, which the Liberal government will conform to, I'm very sure, because it's going to be one of the talking points that's going to kill them. People are going to say, I can't afford a house. The standard of living's gone way up or way down, and you are the fault of that partly because of your immigration problem. You could only bring in 200,000 people or 300,000 people safely that the country can accommodate, and yet you're bringing in 200,000 more than that and blowing up the amount of temporary workers and students.
I might even argue that there is a period, right, and it may be right now, when we may even have to slam that door shut and lock it for a period of time.
I don't think that'll ever happen because there are still essential workers you need. We still have a refugee program that if it's run right, we could really do help some refugees. But really, most of our refugees are.
I'm not the person to say that we stop immigration. That's not me. But I'm seeing the way I see things right now is we're in, Canada's in desperate straits over this.
Yes, because the Liberals did not prepare properly. They have the ideal. They have this ideal. They wanted to expand the population and hope that about 30% of the country is foreign born to expand and grow the country. And that was their ideal. And once you have an ideal and you have a mindset that way, you'll pretend that anything is possible. When somebody says to you, how about the amount of houses? Well, we'll just build some. What about the amount of healthcare we need? Oh, we'll just expand it. If you want to believe something, you're going to believe it. No one in the Liberal government seems to have thought, can the country absorb that many? Do we have houses enough for them? Do we have healthcare enough for them?
And insane
plan. That is like a very, like, it is, unfortunately, it's a sign of their inability to look at practical measures. Okay, can we absorb? Nobody said, can we absorb 500,000 people a year? They said, we want to absorb 500,000 people a year.
There's a major difference there.
Yeah.
Absolute major difference there. And the answer, yes, we would like to absorb 500,000 a year. Oh, great concept. Can we absorb them? Oh,
well, that's it. They may have said, look, we've got this really fine ideal to have a diversity in our nation. That means we'll have to bring in 30% of the population foreign born. That might have been their ideal, but did they ever say we want to bring 500,000? Are we capable of it? How many can we bring in? And then they could, if they looked at the amount of houses, healthcare availability, and all that, and somebody says, you know what, we can only take in 300,000 safely, and where they will not disrupt the amount of houses and healthcare that we have available. Our infrastructure could sustain 300,000 or 250,000 or something like
whatever that figure is. Yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't bother. They didn't even bother to ask that question, evidently.
Yeah, but they need to ask that question first. How many people can we take?
Exactly.
Right? How many new homes can we build per year?
The huge amount of residents, 500,000 a year, students and temporary workers plus refugees has strained our systems incredibly. Yeah. And yet the government will not admit to that. It is starting to now, as we saw Mark Miller yesterday, last week, announced possible restrictions on the amount of people coming in. And of course, he's couching his term. They're trying to pick up on conservative talking points, and they even sound like conservatives now. But they're kind of the language they're using basically is, oh, we're going to look at it. Don't worry, we're going to have some significant, not cosmetic changes, which implies they've had cosmetic changes before that the Canadians didn't like. We'll see about that. They still have this pie in the sky ideal that they have to have. They want that. That's part of their policy from the very beginning, to make Canada 30% of the population born outside the country without fat. And that may be a good idea. Some people might think it's a good idea, but the real problem here is, can the country absorb them?
Yeah. And this is where Polyev is coming from, because he's saying a future conservative government would tie the country's population growth rate to a level that's below the number of new homes being built on an annual basis.
And the Liberal government now is stuck in a policy they can't admit was wrong. So what they're saying, oh, well, now it's time to put limitations. So they start with the temporary workers. They reduce the amount of students coming into the country, hoping that the ones that are really unqualified don't really end up here as a student and then become a burden to our society because they won't go home. So the real problem here is how fast can the Liberals make these changes without looking as if they're adopting conservative talking points. So what they'll do is they'll go around it. They'll do some sort of tiptoeing around it to make it look good for the next election. I don't think they're capable of saying, yeah, we made a mistake.
Yeah, I know. That's the big problem. Yeah. They need to actually admit that they've made a mistake, and essentially they need to kind of trim it down now. You know,
I
even
find
we were talking yesterday about the Liberal policy, and they're talking about 500,000 guaranteed for 25 and 26. 500,000 is almost inevitably too high for 25 and 26.
absolutely, it's already been proven. And
Yeah.
how is CSIS and the RCMP going to be able to check that many people for terrorists as well?
Mm-hmm.
So they're already overburdened. You're going to bring all these people in, and the country can't sustain them. It seems incredible to me that nobody back in 2015, when they launched this policy of increased immigration, that nobody said to the government, we can't sustain it. It says, you want 500,000, but we could take 300,000 safely.
Yeah.
Nobody said that. Like the government had plans to build lots of housing back in 2015, but didn't launch the program until last year when the conservatives made big, huge credibility of pointing that out. And before that, Trudeau was quoted and says, well, that's not a federal problem. That's a provincial problem. They're the ones that have to build houses. So he sloughed it off. But once it became a big issue in the federal parliament, all of a sudden they reawoke the plan that they originally had back in 2015, but decided to discard.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So,
Or at least not activate.
Yeah. Okay. I think briefly we need to talk about a problem that's reared its ugly head in the last year or so. Polio in Gaza on the rise.
Well, yes. So the children in Gaza couldn't get their normal polio vaccines that everybody gets.
Yeah.
You can't get them because this savage war is going on. They have over 100 kids born every week or something there. I forget how many. There's still children being born there. Of course, they're being slaughtered as fast as they're being born. And I don't withdraw that. I don't withdraw that. I think that the Israelis are behaving abominably on the West Bank and especially in Gaza. Right now, they have polio. Polio is showing up in the sewer water. Polio is showing up in children. The children are getting polio. So they have to be vaccinated. Now, this is one thing the Israelis cannot refuse to stop fighting so that the kids can get polio vaccination. This is a step too far. If they try to stop this, the world community will really come down on them. Even the United States, not even the United States can protect them from this. They have to stop fighting long enough. They're going to say like 3 days. I mean, I don't know how many of these thousands of kids can get a polio vaccination in 3 days. But anyway, they're going to
a few thousand
having
get
polio vaccinations in certain parts of Gaza and stop the fighting that long.
A few thousand can get done in 3 days, not more than a few thousand, 3,000 or 4,000 tops, that type of thing. Hardly in the tens of thousands are going to get vaccinated in that time, right? And basically, this situation has been made worse. So back in July, Gaza's health ministry declared a polio epidemic in Gaza.
Yeah, it's. Well, that's only going to be like what happens when you have war. You have pestilence.
Yes.
When you have war, you have pestilence. Next thing is going to be cholera. You watch because there's not enough fresh water. So there's polio, cholera. What else is going to happen? Are we going to have happily smallpox is being? But there's going to be tuberculosis. There's going to be all kinds of other things that are super preventable, and that is because the United States is spineless, absolutely spineless. Stop giving them weapons. Stop giving the IDF weapons so we can stop this war and take care of the children in Gaza and the innocent people as well. Hamas will be there forever. And if they're not in Gaza, they're going to be outside Gaza. And you just planted the seeds of making more Hamas terrorists, you fools.
And again, the picture here in this article is talking about pedestrians walking in the streets of Khan Yunis, which is the most southernmost town in Gaza.
No, it's the middle. It's one in the middle.
It's one of a southern town in Gaza. Let's put it that way. And essentially, what is flowing on the streets is sewage. Right? If you've got sewage flowing on the streets, you're going to get cholera, typhoid, and all of these diseases that, generally speaking, in most parts of the world, do not exist because we have because we've sorted these issues out, right?
The IDF has targeted infrastructure.
Yeah.
They've blown up schools, they've blown up universities, and they're empty. They're empty. They have possessed them. They are in control. There are no IDF. There are no Hamas soldiers in it. The IDF comes and they take a university or a school, and they blow it up. Right? There's no more Hamas guys in there, but they blow it up just because they want to destroy the whole country. They're targeting infrastructure. Right, they're targeting. If it wasn't for the international community, they would starve these people right out. They don't care. Their whole plan is to expel or kill as many people as they can to make it miserable. They are savagely. They are rabid with revenge, and the whole Amalek thing, that Bibi Netanyahu has said is atrocious. He's talking about Amalek when the Israelis massacred all their enemies back in 3000 BC, or no, 1000 BC, 3000 years ago. One of the big talking points in one of the things that keeps coming up in Israeli education is the book of Joshua, where Joshua came in and genocided all the Canaanites in the area and then took their land. We know the story of Jericho.
Yeah, we know
where they went around Jericho and they murdered everybody except that one prostitute that let them in. Now, and they killed every animal too in the book. Now, we don't know how historically accurate that is, but they are teaching that in Israeli schools. So their idea of this subhuman species called Palestinian, and it's way okay to kill as many as possible. They're just in the way. You got guys like Ben Gvir and Smotrich, who pull a chain of Bibi Netanyahu, who is quite happy to do it anyway.
Well, the biblical enemies of the Israelites are all reflected in the modern day citizens of Palestine and etc. Right?
Yeah, the book of Joshua, they eradicated, according to the book. I don't know how historically accurate it is. Eradicated all the people in the land of Canaan by killing them all. If you read the book, they kill everybody they come across. They destroy little kingdoms in Canaanite, and they kill everybody. And then after a while, they decide, well, we shouldn't be killing the animals. We could use them. We shouldn't be killing the women. We can mate with them, but we'll kill all the men.
Yeah. And,
so
essentially,
that's a historical reference that guys like Bibi Netanyahu are making.
Yeah. And this is a war that's been going on for thousands of years.
No, it hasn't. It has not been going on for thousands of years.
It has. The concept has been around for quite a long time. Right.
Jews, look, in this particular case, it's very different. There was only in 1890, only about 5% of the population were Jewish.
I know.
The rest were Arab Muslims and Arab Christians. It wasn't until Zionism came into fall that this all started to happen. This is a war of Zionism against the indigenous people of the area. Zionism is a colonial effort. It probably had good intentions at the beginning to save Jews from the persecution of the Europeans, But the Palestinians say, why should we pay for the persecution of the Jews when we didn't do it? Europeans did it. And Betty Zoom says, hello from Niagara, Canada. Hi, Betty. So the story here is about polio. And I'm surprised that we're even able to talk the Israelis into having a ceasefire for 3 days so kids can get polio shots. So all I can see is a kid will get a polio shot. Now he's safe from polio, but 3 days from then, he's going to be under risk of getting blown apart by a bomb or being locked in the rubble and die of starvation because he can't get out.
Yeah, I know. And that's the worst of all of this, right? Is that he really isn't going to get out. No. I'm
telling you, we are not. The West is never going to be forgiven for this.
No,
this is counter to Western ideals. This is counter to the democracy ideals. We want to stop that kind of thing, not encourage it. And the United States is encouraging it every day.
Yeah.
Here's bullets. Don't use them. But here's lots of bullets. We you know what? Officially, we say don't use them. And but here's another box when you run out of that one.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely disgusting what's going on out there. And and essentially, as I said right from the very beginning, Hamas was wrong to actually invade Israel and take those hostages. But again, the IDF has been even more wrong since then.
Yeah, as I said before, 1,000 people were killed by Hamas on October 7th, and 40,000 have been killed by the Israelis.
And both of those figures are absolutely disgusting.
Well, yeah, but if you reap your revenge 40-fold, who's more disgusting?
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, there's a biblical statement out there that that states if you wish to commit revenge, you need to dig 2 graves, one for the person you're committing revenge against, and one for yourself.
That's right. I don't know. It is ungodlike. It really is. And I don't know where the end of this is coming, but at least we'll get a little bit of a breather. 3 days. Maybe somebody can get some water during that 3 days. Maybe they can get some food. Maybe they can find a more secure place. What the Israelis are doing is pushing these Gazans into smaller and smaller uninhabitable places. They keep saying, okay, you got to move out here. They just keep doing that. They want to wear them down. And at the same time saying, oh, the other Arab countries aren't taking these people in as refugees. Well, they damn well know that if they do, they'll never get back there. And I denounce the United States wholeheartedly on this. They're the ones that could have mitigated the situation and chose not to.
Yeah,
they give a lot of lip service, but allow this murderous regime to keep doing what it's doing.
Yeah,
after they killed 20 times as many victims as they had and destroyed half of Gaza, you would think that would be way more than enough already.
How are they going to? Because I can see, as I say, three or 4 days worth of ceasefire. They can vaccinate 10,000 kids, maybe 20,000, maybe, but not 640,000.
Well, the humanitarian agents are setting up and they're going to do the best that they can. They're all set up and ready to go. And anyway, have a great day, everyone, from Karen Fraser. Okay, Karen, have a great day. And I guess it's time for us to end anyway. So I will say, without further ado, I bid you pray for peace.